In a small ancient village in Africa, there lived a very wealthy man named Omadi. He was respected by everyone, known as a wise elder and a loving father to his only child, a bright and cheerful boy named Ejike. No one in the village knew that beneath Omadi's kind behavior lay a dark, terrible secret. A secret that will soon be revealed in the most tragic way. Omadi had farms, houses, and several cars. But after a while, he fell ill. He sold his farms and houses to treat the mysterious illness, and he was left with just one farm and a house. Omadi started struggling. His only thriving farm had fallen into disrepair. It became difficult for him and his child to eat, and his debts were accumulating. Desperate to reclaim the wealth he had lost, Omadi sought out a powerful and dangerous cult known for promising riches in exchange for dark sacrifices. These were not just any sacrifices. They required the offering of something deeply loved, something that would tear the very soul of the person apart. The cult leader, a mysterious and feared man known as Okugbe, saw the desperation in Omadi's eyes. "You seek wealth, but wealth comes at a price," Okugbe had said, his voice very cold and without emotions. Omadi nodded, willing to do anything to escape his poverty and the shame that comes with being poor. "You must sacrifice the one thing you love the most. Only then will the riches flow to you," Okugbe said. Omadi's heart sank. He knew what this meant. The court required a life, and not just any life. It required the life of his beloved son, Ejike. Torn between his love for his son and his desperation for wealth, Omadi spent sleepless nights wrestling with the impossible choice. Days turned into weeks, and the pressure grew. Omadi's debts were closing in on him, and his house was on the brink of being seized. In his darkest moment, with nothing but the promise of wealth to cling to, Omadi made the unthinkable decision. He said to himself, "I will do what was asked. I will sacrifice Ejike." But Omadi wasn't prepared for what came next. As the day of the ritual approached, Omadi fell sick. His bright smile faded and his energy drained away. The village healer, an old woman with a reputation for seeing beyond the physical world, was summoned. She examined Omadi and with a grave expression turned to Omadi. "This is no ordinary sickness. There is dark magic at work here," she warned. Omadi was immediately gripped with guilt and fear, but he brushed off the healer's warning. He had already made his choice, and there was no turning back. On the night of the ritual, under a moonless sky, Omadi led Ejike deep into the forest. The boy was weak and confused, but he followed his father, trusting him completely. At the heart of the forest, surrounded by ancient trees and total silence, Okugbe and the other cult members waited. A cold wind swept through the forest as the cult leader handed Omadi a ceremonial dagger. "Do it now, or lose everything forever," Okugbe commanded. Omadi's hand trembled as he took the dagger. He looked down at Ejike, who looked at him with innocent and trusting eyes. Ejike cried out loud, "Daddy, please, don't kill me. I don't want to die. I will become someone in life. I will take care of you. Please, don't do this to me." Tears streamed down Omadi's face as he raised the dagger. But just as he was about to strike, a sudden realization hit him like a lightning bolt. He couldn't do it. The thought of killing his own son was too much to bear, and his love for Ejike overwhelmed his desire for wealth. He dropped the dagger to the ground and he wept bitterly. But Okugbe was not a man to be disobeyed. With a scary smile, he picked up the dagger and said, "You have failed, Omadi, but the rituals must be completed." In a swift, brutal motion, Okugbe plunged the dagger into Ejike's chest, the boy's eyes widening in shock and pain as they fell lifeless to the ground. Omadi screamed, a sound of pure agony, as he collapsed beside his son's body. But the nightmare was far from over. Instead of receiving the promised wealth, Omadi found himself cursed. The riches he had sought turned to ash in his hands, and his farm, instead of flourishing, was swallowed by the earth, leaving nothing behind but barren land. His house was also taken from him because he couldn't pay his debt. Haunted by his betrayal and horrific loss of his son, Omadi wandered the village like a ghost. Shunned by those who once respected him, the villagers whispered of his terrible fate, of the father who sacrificed his child for greed and received only misery in return. One night, the village healer saw him by the roadside. Her eyes were filled with a mix of pity and condemnation as she revealed the truth. Your son was never meant to be the sacrifice. The cult deceived you. They needed not the life of an innocent, but the soul of a man broken by his own hand. They took from you not just your son, but your very humanity. Omadi was consumed by grief and madness. He fled the village that night, never to be seen again. His story became a cautionary tale, a dark reminder of the dangers of greed and the price of trusting those who prey on desperation.